establish a township where no one person ran the whole show.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and got them into town government, you know.
Uh-huh.
And because those people was all used to coming under the king,
Mhm.
and the king told them, well, what, you all ready, are you?
Mm-hmm.
They see you got your red light on, man.
Yep, you know what that means.
How's the sound? The sound coming through all right?
Perfect. You have a great, great voice.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's because I got a cold today.
Well, you know, I'll tell you too, we walked out of here last time and we were just saying, boy, we wish we had taped, because some of the stuff you were talking about, the ritual and the social organization, which is, you know, about the pyramid versus the circle and things like that, that, you know, we'd really, if we can get into any of that today, I'll try. If it would make it any easier, I'd just like to ask you maybe like a couple of specific questions.
Okay.
And then you could just take it, you know, any way you wanted to give us an idea what you think the answer is about those times, you know, about, well, I guess literally your ancestors, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
how they thought, especially given that they, like, there was no such thing as Western civilization or history for them.
Yeah.
This was all just like living in the present, and all of a sudden there are these people coming ashore, these strangers, you know. First of all, then, what we're trying to understand is sort of, if an Englishman came here, and was at least, you know, friendly, willing to share what he had, etc., how would he go to the local authority, like the sachem or the sachem's council in the tribes and things like that? What kinds of things would he say to them to say, I would really like permission to hunt on your territory, and in return I'll, for example, trade you guns or whatever else we have that you might want?
I don't, he didn't necessarily have to really go to anybody, any authority. I mean, there wasn't that kind of a hierarchy. But what would happen is, I mean, if you, there's North people, they was coming here for years, and they would come and they would establish themselves and do their fishing, and they go on about their business, you know. But they had a lot of communication with the people, you know, and so they would sometimes bring trade goods with them, and they would barter back and forth or whatever. And but it wasn't necessarily where you'd have to come to the president or the city council or anything and say, hey, here I am, you know.
So you feel that someone like Massasoit or Chickataback, for example, who was, you know, one of the sachems under Massasoit in Massachusetts, he wouldn't, their ideas about the land wouldn't be so territorial as we might assume then, and maybe Mr. Morton wouldn't have to come there specifically to...
No, but you see, if you ended up in a village or something, and they had the sagamores or the sub-chiefs that was in the villages, and when the supreme chief would come to visit the village, they would say, well, you know, we have a stranger here, you know, and they might get into some conversation, but wherever that person was, I mean, and whatever people he met with, that's who he'd deal with. Okay.
So it'd be the people living more directly on the land, and they don't have to get so much the okay from more authoritative...
No, you have to remember that this was a real true democracy here, and the people wasn't that kind of a controlling mechanism that was established, where you had to report, you had to go get a green card or something from someone, you know, and the people had respect until you showed them disrespect, and I think this is where the confusion comes in, you know, and this is because people have a mind that has been abused by where they come from, and they have different traits that they apply in survival tactics that wasn't necessary here. You could come and that people would take you in, they would help you. I mean, you was just another human being out there in their eyes. But in the communities themselves, there was the key was that respect kind of thing, being up upfront, being honest, and you know, and looking and seeing what you was doing, how it's going to affect someone else, you know, and if it was in a negative way,
You
then you
spoke
bet.
about your one's word being one's bond.
That's
last
right.
time we
Yeah,
did.
and so as long as that person stayed within that realm, I mean, they would be just like anybody else. And you have to remember that it wasn't a racist kind of thing. I mean, we didn't deal with racism. I mean, we didn't know anything about racism, you know, and those kind of prejudices that came in. So,
You talked about what would happen when someone did break their word.
well,
Having
they would have to leave that community because the community had lost respect for them, and so they'd have to move on. I mean, they just you know, it's kind of sad part in life when you have no one that has respect for you. You know, that's like the end. You know, and so.
In relation to what we were talking about once before about the difference between the sort of pyramid and the circle, could you just tell us a little bit more about how people feel or live within that community where there is no authority they can turn to?
You see, my position as a supreme medicine man for the Wampanoag people doesn't make me greater than anyone else. We don't look at hierarchy as something of any importance at all, because we know that the Creator had gifted all of us with something special that I can do. That is, you know, is my gift that I can, you know, carry out something particularly that is needed by the whole community. And the circle that we speak of is that everyone in that circle is equal. It doesn't matter whether you're old or young, child or whatever. You have an equal space in that circle, and whatever gifts that are illuminating and getting brighter that we can see that you know, this is a good person for hunting or a good person for farming because he's got into that. He's learned a lesson about the earth and how it will produce a crop of food, and so that person takes that role, or is given to him. My position is given to me by the people. I don't ask to be the medicine man. I don't go around in politics for that. I don't go out and campaign for that position. In fact, I didn't even know that they were going to bestow that on me, and it was kind of a shock to me because there's a lot of responsibilities that are involved in that position, and so you know, you really have to think. But then on the same token, you can't refuse it. You know.
Yeah, because it's something that grows out of a need in the
That's
community
right.
as opposed to
And
being
so,
brought down.
So if you want to be part of that community, you have to accept that role. And if you can't handle that role, then the people will take you out of that position.
On that basis, do you think, like most of the sort of white or Western scholars that I study about the period, they sort of imply that whenever there was business to be done between the settlers and the Indians, it was always going to the big man somewhere.
Well,
do you think that's sort of a misconception?
This was a mentality that came from Europe.
Do you think they were seeing what they wanted to see?
Well, no, this was a common practice in Europe. I mean, you would go to the king or the high authority, whoever was the highest authority, and they had hierarchy there. Okay, and but we're you know, taught, we believe that sovereignty about each one of us, a sovereign being has been put here. Okay, and we have to take control of ourselves, and that's, you know, unheard of here in this society we're living in today. I mean, there's no one sovereign here. You know, you've got governments here. There's a guy here that's set you all off in the war. Okay, and this guy here is, you know, he's your sovereign. Okay, and he's taking your sovereignty away from you, and he's put you in war. Okay, and you have nothing to say about it. Okay, you're sitting here, you might want to say, or you might say you don't like it or whatever, but the fact is that he's got you engaged in the war right today.